Alright, how we doing, guys? So, I wanted to get into this topic regarding this. So, what does it mean to be an ally? You know, it sounds good. I want to be an ally. All about it. Sign me up. What's behind this? Now, this is American Express, right? So this is being given to adults, grown men, grown women. And it's talking about how you should treat Black and African American community around you. And to me, it's puzzling because basically these are people who have grown up their entire lives being told this already. Like, it's not as though somebody, a 25, 30-year-old employee at American Express, does not understand that racism is a thing, and it's always been a thing, and slavery happened, and that, it's bad. Now they're going to corporations. Because we know it's in schools. I mean, for cereal.
Sir, please go ahead. Good evening, Board. I'd like to begin my comments tonight by reading a quote, which in essence is the genesis of all of this Black Lives Matter, social justice, CRT conversations we're having in our country today. Quote, "I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses Black people and people of color," close quote. Colin Kaepernick, August 2016. I am the direct descendant of the North American slave trade. Both my parents are Black, all 4 of my grandparents are Black, all 8 of my great-grandparents, all 16 of my great-greats. On my mother's side, my ancestors were enslaved in Alabama. On my father's side, we were enslaved in Texas. I am not oppressed. I'm not oppressed, and I'm not a victim. I'm neither oppressed nor a victim. I travel all across this country of ours, and I check into hotels, and I fly commercially, and I walk into retail establishments, and I order food in restaurants. I go wherever I want, whenever I want. I am treated with kindness, dignity, and respect, literally from coast to coast. I have 3 children. They are not oppressed either, although they are victims. I've taught my children they are victims of 3 things: their own ignorance, their own laziness, and their own poor decision making. That is all. My children, we are not victims of America. We are not victims of some unseen 190-year-old force that kind of floats around in the ether. Putting critical race theory into our classrooms is taking our nation in the wrong direction. Racism in America would by and large be dead today if it were not for certain people and institutions keeping it on life support. And sadly, very sadly, one of those institutions is the American education system. I can think of nothing more damaging to a society than to tell a baby born today that she has grievances against another baby born today simply because of what their ancestors may have done 2 centuries ago. There is simply no point in doing that to our children, and putting critical race theory into our classrooms in part does that. Putting critical race theory into our classrooms is not combating racism, it's fanning the flames of what little embers are left. I encourage you to support this resolution. Let racism die the death it deserves, and let's keep living the life of the country that we are. Thank you.
Okay, so I started thinking about that, and I've been thinking a lot about, I wonder why growing up in the education system, I was constantly told about the atrocities of Hitler and the Nazi Party in Germany, and how there was racisms, and how the KKK is the same thing, I guess, and 6 million Jewish peoples, and all that. Every single fucking year of my education, we talked about those things. At some point Hitler came up every single year. And I think maybe once or twice there's a little mention about Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong. I never heard of Pol Pot. Right? So they jam that down our throats. It's Nazism, far right fascism is terrible. And finding a link between the murdering of people based on their race and what the Nazi Party actually represented, because we didn't learn that in school. We didn't learn what Hitler's message was. All we learned was that Hitler equals murder Jews and blacks and gays and gypsies. My point, I guess, is that it's curious to me that movements of communism and socialism, which resulted in mass murders of hundreds of millions of people, mainly due to starvation or the fact they were intellectuals or they were engineers or they were doctors. That's not priority to teach our kids. No, you gotta teach our kids about this guy who was saying, and there's never any subtitles, is there? No translations. No, we just watch the speeches. And it's a guy who's hopped up on meth, screaming at a crowd, thousands of people in the crowd who are loving it, loving the message. And we're just taught to assume that what he's saying is the Jews are bad, the blacks are bad, the gays are bad, and let's murder them all, I guess. So that was always curious to me. They kept coming back to that. And then I'm seeing like, oh, that was pretty bad too. What that guy did over there in China, that seems like it was pretty bad. I even took a class in college, and we didn't cover that. There's a political science class on China. We didn't cover that. That guy over there, a little bit further north, Stalin. Joseph Stalin? There's some pretty terrible shit he did too, right? Why do I have to, after 12 years of, primary education, is that what they call it? Primary school education, and 4 years of, I took political science. I majored in it. I didn't learn anything about what he did. I mean, from what I'm seeing, it was much more atrocious. And then I'm seeing the correlations. The correlations between what Mao Zedong, Joseph Stalin, what their game was, and what seemingly seems to be what some sort of undercurrent apparatus of people in charge are trying to do to the globe. I'm thinking, okay, if I am a power that supersedes any nation, that has roots in every corner of this globe, I'm thinking, well, yeah, I wouldn't put that in the education system. Let's not tell them what happened. Let's not tell them what happened when we tried this before. You know? No, 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 no. Let's demonize that one guy who, Germany was bankrupt in the early 30s. And something happened. And, I don't know. They found a bunch of dead bodies, I guess. I don't know. Something happened. But let's educate the students. The only thing that happened in the middle of the 20th century was that this guy rose to power and proclaimed that the white race must, as the pure race, must eliminate every other race, and then America and Europe stepped in and got rid of that evil notion. Now, from my experience in my 35 years on this planet, nothing is that simple. Ever. Never ever. So why would we make something as complex as what happened between 1930 and 1970, 1960? I'll go 30 to 60. Those 30 years, we're just gonna take those 30 years and we're gonna grind them down, and we'll teach our kids that, oh, this white leader he had a plan to get rid of all the non-whites. Because Nazis and fascisms. So, what was going on everywhere else? Nothing? Oh, no. Don't worry about all that. Don't worry about that. Anyway, in the meantime, remember, Marxism is badass. You gotta wear that t-shirt, with what's his name? Che Guevara is badass. Marxism is awesome, dude. Down with the machine. Rage against the machine. Yeah. So then we have entire generations of people, and this is reinforced in college, where basically they teach that the system that we're living in is inherently racism, and that the only way forward is revolution. And this, understandably, makes kids like, what the hell? What? We gotta completely revolt and cause a revolution against the system in order to make things okay in the world? Well, this is how you get people willing to protest violently in Antifa and BLM. That's how it happens. Now we add another layer to that. So now we understand that our system is bad, and the people that we worked so hard to stop from taking us over are good, right? I was taught, McCarthyism. It was bad. It wasn't nice of us to accuse Hollywood of being infiltrated by communists. It was a bad thing, right? To accuse them. No, we should have. No, it was a witch hunt. Was it? Was it a bad thing to stop the infiltration of our propaganda machine? The machinery of propaganda in America from being taken over by communism? Was it a bad thing? Or did we know what communism could do? At the time, we knew. McCarthy obviously knew. I think it was Joseph McCarthy. I don't want to get that wrong. But he knew obviously there was a danger there, right? But they don't teach that part in schools. Right? So as a student, I'm thinking like, oh, yeah, that must have been a witch hunt. These are just creative people, and they're trying to blacklist them due to the fact that they have different political beliefs, that dissent against capitalism and, the constitutional republic that this country was founded upon. I fell into that, yeah. Of course. Can you blame me? When you're a kid, you take in what you get. You can't. There's no big picture for you. You're building a picture. You're building a big picture, right? And I think that's what we have happening here. I think that's why we have parents taking a step back, being like, whoa, what? And this is a great example right here of how it happened. So, the leftists, they kind of screwed up coinciding these two things, the COVID-19 lockdowns and the CRT rollout, right? Because now you have leftists regretting locking down America because parents now have the time, right? They're at home all day. And they're at home all day, and their kids are at home all day. And their kids are taking classes on Zoom, and they can kind of take a peek, or maybe an ear full of the bullshit being rammed down their kids' throats. And they don't like it, for good reason. I think something much deeper is going on here.
The Soviets put the ordinary criminals in charge of the camps. And these were very, very seriously bad people. And so you can imagine the way that they treated the political prisoners who were regarded as socially hostile elements, sometimes because of their own hypothetically traitorous acts, but more often merely as a consequence of their racial or ethnic identity, or the fact that they were related by birth to, say, people who had been successful under the previous system, so who had any association with nobility or any association with what were known as the kulaks, who were the only successful class of former peasants in the Soviet Union, because they were regarded as privileged. You may have heard that word more recently. They were regarded as privileged and therefore as enemies of the state, and it didn't matter if it was your father or your grandfather or your great-grandfather who happened to be privileged, but the mere fact that you were a member of that group was sufficient reason to put you into a camp.
What's going on now? We're systematically labeling people in accordance with their genealogy. And that's what they are. So you're born, you're given a label based upon your skin color, what your genealogy is, where your grandparents are from, and that's who you are. Now, how does that help a society? It doesn't. That's how you break down a society. So you break down a society in terms of race. or class. Therefore, you turn entire groups of people against each other easily. So that's kind of evil. And we're seeing it happen now. And we're seeing it happen with vaccines and COVID. Like, okay, trust us. Okay. So now they have a way of distinguishing those people who are submissive from those people who dissent. Just by nature. You know. You don't want me to dissent? Give me the evidence. I don't really follow anything about that, so give me the thing that you need me the thing. Just give it to me. So now they have clear indications of who's who. So, okay, Pol Pot murdered anybody wearing glasses because he assumed anyone who wore glasses was an intellectual and therefore were probably going to dissent against his reign of terror, right? You have Stalin eliminating anybody who was an engineer or a doctor because he assumed anybody who was brain active was going to think for themselves and dissent against tyrannical authority. So let's just eliminate them. Okay? So it's much easier to control a population of people who don't think, who don't care, but you're also eliminating a lot of people who help strategize, design things, invent things, win wars. But that's why I say in the end, the big picture for them is not about achieving the best for their country. They were not put into their positions in the interest of their countries. They were put into their positions to play a role for a globalist agenda. That's why we see Biden. Right now, I wasn't going to go into this, but I might, just because it's pretty on point with this discussion right now. That's why we see him doing things that obviously do not help America. It's because that's not why he's there. He's there to help a globalism agenda. Right? I mean, aside from the fact that he's probably do I still have to say probably? He's compromised to China, Ukraine, Russia. He's, they got dirt on his son. They probably got dirt on him too. But that's not even it. They don't even need that. That's just kind of like icing on the cake. He's already sold out. His son is just like another bonus. So when he does the moves he makes, don't expect them to be addressing the American people or what's good for this country. He doesn't give a shit. He's not the president of this country. He's a plant. He's a plant because they look at this globe and they see our country as the only beacon of true freedom on the planet. And there's other beacons of sort of freedom, and believe me, they're targeting them as well. And their thought is, how do we eliminate that, which, that piece of, that chunk of land, which everyone else on the planet is willing to die in order to get to. You think the border problem is because of racism in America? America's so racist and terrible. Why does every brown person on the planet want to come to this country? Because it's racism? It's gaslighting. Gaslighting. The whole thing's a fucking sham. News media. Everything they say, I almost want to say every single thing that we're told by the deep state apparatus, apples, is generally the exact opposite. And I'll put this down to my theory about the projection. So we learned, I guess if you went to a good high school, you learned about projection in psychology. Essentially, it's the psychological mechanism of taking your own either insecurities or vices and projecting them on others so that you don't feel as bad, right? So you like to you enjoy stealing things from the store. And you put them in your pocket and you're like, oh, I feel really bad about doing that. And so what you do is you assume, you put a projection out there that everyone else is doing the same thing. And then you don't feel so bad. Classic. That's how it works. Most of us grow out of that. Most of us eventually learn to take responsibility for our own actions. And we see other people as completely autonomous, basically replications of ourselves, but blank slates in terms of what we know about them. And what we learn about them eventually becomes what they are. And what that involves is the content of their character. So we judge them not by what we assume they are, but by their projection, their own projection to us of the content of their character. And that's what I think is being lost. Because what's more important now for those people, those people, is that we judge based on skin color, heritage. What does that do for them? Number one, it divides us. Number two, it distracts us. So it divides us, basically, because now we're born into some sort of tribes. Number two, it distracts us. So now we can't think about how we can make our lives better. We're thinking about the reasons that our lives aren't better, right? Oh, I'm privileged. Oh man, I'm being suppressed. Number three, divides us, distracts us. Number three, probably starts with D. It dumbs us down, for sure. You look at the education system. If you have kids being taught that the only thing that is important right now is that you are oppressed and that you need to understand why you are the oppressor or the oppressed and why that and this and the other, instead of teaching them about math, science, literature. You're teaching them false narratives about race being the main thing that matters. And the only way that you can pick yourself up and be successful in this world is if you become white. The only way that you can pick yourself up is if you understand how oppressed these other people are who aren't white. Wait, but what about calculus and physics? You know? All those people who did all the work that created the technology allowing us to be able to pick up a little device and look anything up in 5 seconds, or be able to wash our clothes and dry them. The people who came up with microwaves in the refrigerator. No, guys, that was all white supremacies. No, forget about all that. Wait, forget about the giants whose shoulders we're living on extremely comfortably. Yeah, forget about all that. What matters now is, your privileges. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, okay.
About critical race theory, which is pretty much going to be teaching kids how to hate each other, how to dislike each other. That's pretty much, I don't care what you say, it's pretty much what it's going to all come down to. 2 medical degrees. No mom, no dad in the house. Worked my way through college. Sat there and hustled my butt off to get through college. You going to tell me somebody that looked like all y'all white folks kept me from doing that?
Was there any progress made in your local school board? Have you made any progress after your speech?
Oh, absolutely. There's been a huge amount of people from the community and from pretty much all over the world sending me emails, showing great support, saying thanks for standing up for our children. Thanks for being courageous and bold. And thanks for just pretty much telling the truth. And in our community, come down to parents. It's going to have to come down to the parents and really standing up, saying that they don't want this to come. And the thing is that a lot of schools are saying, well, we're not teaching it yet. Well, good. The thing is, we want it to be known that we don't want it there, even if you're even thinking about teaching it.
What was the reaction to you of people who support critical race theory?
I'll give you an example. That's what it was. They had nothing to say because pretty much the lifestyle that I came from, I was a very type of person that they were talking about that was down and suppressed and oppressed and disproportionate. And for me to be able to come out of that, to work my way through school to get where I am, I just called BS on it. It's nonsense. I can't believe it. That's why I said I can't believe that we're even talking about this, because it is a complete lie. Not one white person or system in place kept me from doing what I did, nor has it kept me from the kids that I've mentored. It hasn't kept them from graduating and going beyond what the oppressed narrative says we can't.
We are teaching our kids to stop thinking about their own destiny. We don't want our kids thinking about how to make their lives better, how to achieve what they're destined to be, right? We want them distracted. It's all D's. There's a lot of D's in this. Okay? You give kids devices which distract them, divide them, destroy their brain cells, and deconstruct the history of this country.
It's absolutely true.
It's pretty brilliant, really.